After two powerful panels, I know you're all looking forward to what we'll learn in the final panel of the day. It's called Reimagining Resources. Don't forget, you can ask questions and engage in dialogue at conservationsummit.slack.com, as well as take pride in Texas. As we all know and take pride in, Texas is by all measures successful and enjoying the world's 10th largest gross domestic product. We have almost 300 million citizens, 177 million acres that we call our own, and 10 diverse ecoregions. Reimagining how we bring our plentiful resources together to deliver innovative places, resilient landscapes and natural resources, equitable access, and economic opportunities is a future that will benefit every Texan at work, at play, and at home. The focus of this panel is innovation, ways of collaborating and conserving that are pushing the envelope. This is inspiring and thought-provoking for what every one of us can do new, different, better together to drive impact. The project shared next look at resources in new ways to come up with new solutions. From a golf course, to youth leaders, to transportation, to the beverage supply chain, we can learn how new opportunities develop through a new lens. Before we move on to the panel, we have a video from the Trinity River crew, which is one of our conservation wranglers.
I just love working outside in my garden. When I was younger, my grandma had her own garden in Mexico, and she would try to influence me to work on it, and as a child, you really don't have the patience for it, but you want to learn. Kids are more involved with technology, and technology is a good thing, but when you don't preserve the environment, you're not going to have any point of having technology. Being outside in my garden is my favorite way of being outside. People don't talk much about conservation in my community because they're trying to get through day by day with the basics such as food, paying for bills, and resources that they need. My name is Alejandra Collazo. I am part of the Trinity River crew.
The Trinity River provides water for 7.5 million people throughout the DFW area and even more downstream.
The Trinity River is this amazing natural resource that we have right here in the city. It's really been neglected, and it's full of litter and has a lot of other environmental challenges related to it.
Perhaps now more than ever, we're paying attention to the river, the future of the river, and the future of Dallas. And that's where the Trinity River Crew program comes in.
Trinity River Crew is this amazing collaboration between Groundwork Dallas and Trinity Park Conservancy. It's a 7-week summer youth employment program where we target youth in low-income and underserved neighborhoods that are along the Trinity River corridor and provide them with opportunities for job skills training, environmental education, and outdoor recreation to help them connect with the Trinity and have an impact in their communities and along the Trinity River corridor. Trinity River Crew addresses two problems. We have 10,000 acres of the Trinity River corridor right here in Dallas, and much of it is neglected and people just don't know about it. We also have a lot of youth that have never had environmental experiences or job opportunities. We want to connect them to the river and help them improve it.
Both of these issues are so important, and that's why we had to partner with Groundwork Dallas.
there are a lot of underserved neighborhoods right near the Trinity with a lot of youth who don't typically have opportunities to go out and do environmental jobs, do environmental programming, and we really wanted to help connect the youth with the river and give them those opportunities. So we go to schools, we go to community groups, and we say, hey, we have this amazing program. How can we connect to your students and your youth?
We don't just learn about conservation, we also learn about job and social skills.
Trinity River Crew is a summer job program, but it's much more than that. We give them job skills as well as life skills. So we teach them budgeting, we teach them how to write resumes. We really want them to have a well-rounded experience, and we want them to become future stewards of the environment. At the beginning of the session, a lot of these kids are really unsure about being in the program. They haven't spent a lot of time outdoors. And as we go through the program, they start to open up. They start to enjoy being outdoors. After those 7 weeks are over, the kids all know each other, they're laughing, they're hanging out, and you can really tell that they've grown throughout the program and they've learned a lot, not only about environmental and conservation work, but just about how to be a leader in their community.
I changed a lot and I became more passionate. I became more outgoing and motivated to work with preserving the environment, learning new things, and I feel more confident and motivated to move forward in life.
This program not only protects our river, it engages the youth, the leaders of tomorrow, to make sure this continues into the future.
They are going to become future stewards of the environment and of the Trinity River.
Makes you want to get out on the river. Okay, in our final panel today, you'll hear from Garret Boone and Kathryn Trainor from Trinity Park Conservancy, Rick Buckley from Groundwork Dallas, Kim Marotta, the Global Senior Director of Sustainability and Enterprise Risk Management for Molson Coors Beverage Company, and Frank Weary for Exploration Green Conservancy, and then Sarah Ziomek. Did I do that right, Sarah? From Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. Similar to the previous panels, you'll hear each presentation in succession and then join the live speakers, the speakers live for the question and answer session. Please join me in thanking these presenters.
My name is Garret Boone. I'm Vice Chair of the Trinity Park Conservancy Board, and I'm on the board of Groundwork Dallas.
My name is Kathryn. I'm the Volunteer Program Coordinator at Trinity Park Conservancy and lead the organization's Volunteer and Youth Conservation Corps programs. On behalf of the Conservancy and Dallas, I want to thank Texan by Nature for selecting the Trinity River Crew as one of the 2020 Conservation Wrangler projects. We are honored and proud to be part of this program alongside innovative and dedicated conservation leaders in Texas. And thank you to Mrs. Laura Bush and Joni Carswell for their leadership in the field of conservation and to their incredible team. A special thanks to Taylor Keys, our program manager, who has been incredible support and resource over the past year.
With Texan by Nature's support over the past year, our organizations have been developing the Trinity River Crew program, the Joint Conservation Corps program of Groundwork Dallas and Trinity Park Conservancy. This is an exciting partnership between two nonprofit organizations that are dedicated to the conservation of the Trinity River. In 2018, Groundwork Dallas started a summer youth employment program called the Green Team Conservation Corps. The 7-week job training opportunity provided teens with environmental career experience. Using the successful program as a model and taking inspiration from the core movement across the nation, Groundwork Dallas and the Conservancy are developing a collaborative conservation corps focused on the Trinity River, the Trinity River Crew. This program is an opportunity to join together to educate and inspire the next generation of environmental leaders while enhancing conservation efforts throughout the Trinity River corridor. The Trinity River Crew, launching in summer of 2021, will provide meaningful paid conservation work experience within the Trinity River corridor in Dallas, education, leadership skills, and professional development training to high potential youth aged 14 to 18 from historically marginalized areas along the river. To better understand the experience the Trinity River Crew program provides to youth and its impact on the Trinity River, we will cover the unique partnership between Groundwork Dallas and the Conservancy, how the Trinity River Crew is an effective model and innovative way to engage youth in conservation efforts, and ideas for how this program can support other organizational conservation efforts and strengthen our communities. Both Groundwork Dallas and the Conservancy work to support conservation efforts along the Trinity River in Dallas by building trails, parks, and investing in the long-term care of these areas through its park, recreation area, and trail operations, and its extensive volunteer and youth programs, with the goal of increasing equitable access to the river for all Dallas residents. Previously, we have focused on supporting and promoting each other's work in areas such as Fraser Dam Recreation Area, Hines Park, and Harold Simmons Park. All of these areas have been created or in the process of being designed and built to increase equitable access to the Trinity River for all community members from across Dallas.
So both organizations approach engagement and stewardship of the Trinity River with the following goals in mind: to inform and raise awareness of the Trinity River and its environmental challenges through community engagement, environmental education programs, and partnerships to bring attention to this public space, to foster a sense of ownership of the river through volunteer engagement and conservation work opportunities, and to support leadership development of volunteers and paid youth crew members to encourage long-term stewardship of the river, our environment, and our communities. In order to reach these goals for our youth audience, we look to national models for inspiration. Conservation Corps programs across the country address recreation, conservation, disaster response, and community needs. And most modern corps are nonprofits or are operated by entities in state or local government. So through public-private partnerships, corps members engage in meaningful projects that address local and national issues. Groundwork USA has a strong version of this in its flagship Green Team model, which Groundwork Dallas has applied and customized to the local community needs in our area. So partnering on a crew dedicated to supporting the Trinity River was a natural next step for both organizations. I want to take a moment to thank and recognize the team at Groundwork Dallas, who I get to partner with on this program: Rick Buckley, Executive Director, Kathryn Kang, Youth Program Coordinator, and Tracy Hollis, Educational Chair for the Board of Directors for Groundwork Dallas. In addition to a strong history of collaboration at the Trinity River, both Groundwork Dallas and the Conservancy have great working relationships with key Trinity partners, including the City of Dallas, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and nonprofit organizations who will all be involved in engaging the crew this summer. Our organizations understand that the Trinity River needs dedicated stewards, as the City, Conservancy, Groundwork, and other partners simply cannot sustainably support all 10,000 acres of the Trinity River corridor without community and corporate partners and cultivating the next generation of environmental leaders. So at the center of this program are local communities. Unlike many other Conservation Corps programs, the Trinity River Crew will only recruit from local communities in Dallas and prioritize youth from underserved neighborhoods adjacent to the river. So here's a former Groundwork Dallas Green Team member, Candace Thompson from Oak Cliff, a neighborhood close to the river. She shares in her testimony that being part of the crew gave her confidence and widened her worldview through the outdoor work experience. And the goal of this program is to encourage and empower local youth through cultivating their leadership skills and providing educational and professional development opportunities as they complete meaningful conservation projects. And here's an overview of the program structure and how we hope to achieve this goal. For recruitment, both organizations have strong relationships in local neighborhoods and communities across Dallas, including with schools, neighborhood associations, community centers, and have contacts with the City of Dallas and at peer organizations who can share this program and opportunity with their networks. After the application and interview process, 13 crew members will be selected for the 7-week summer program. Crew members will work 4 days a week for a total of 30 hours a week. There will be one full-time staff member from each organization on site with the crew. And the program will provide transportation, safety equipment, work shirts, other gear, lunch and snacks, and all tools and materials needed to safely and comfortably work outdoors. The program curriculum will cover the history and ecology of the river, which Texan by Nature significantly contributed to, safety trainings and hands-on training for conservation activities. We also want to support the whole individual, so we will provide and partner with experts on budgeting and resume workshops, interview skills and networking opportunities with the city and nonprofit environmental professionals. And 6 to 7 projects are selected for the crew members to complete over the course of the summer session. So here are some examples of the types of projects the crew will take on. For wetland restoration, we are hoping to transplant aquatic plants from one area of the Trinity River to another to increase biodiversity and improve erosion control and water filtration. Because the focus is the river, water quality is a priority, and crew members will be trained on water quality testing and get their Texas Stream Team certification to be able to provide data to the City of Dallas. And they will learn about engaging the community in park design and programming, which is essential to raising awareness and strengthening the connection between people and the Trinity River. So crew members will not only be expected to complete these projects, but they will also be encouraged to take advantage of opportunities to lead fellow crew members during project's execution. Groundwork Dallas's successful Conservation Corps program structure has really allowed for replication of other crews under their umbrella, as well as partnering with the Conservancy to support this crew dedicated to the Trinity River. And having a flexible program structure to follow, staff expertise and established partnerships with city, nonprofit, and community partners are key to bringing this type of conservation youth employment program to other areas. And here are just some of the impacts the Trinity River crew will have. While this program is a 7-week summer work opportunity, we hope that it serves as a catalyst for building a culture of stewardship around the Trinity River. One example of ongoing volunteer engagement is water quality testing. Groundwork Dallas has had success engaging former Green team members returning to assist staff as volunteers to monitor their water quality testing sites. And it's our hope to expand the testing sites to more areas of the river and tap our experienced Trinity River crew members to lead that effort. The program is structured in a way that crew members are accountable for upholding their job responsibilities and producing quality work while not losing sight of the beauty and benefits of working outdoors in nature. Cultivating an appreciation for the environment is just as important to us as preparing youth for their professional endeavors and completing projects. And learning about the ecology of the river and how their work will improve not only the habitat for wildlife, but also things such as floodwater mitigation, water filtration, and stormwater management will help to better illustrate this relationship between the Trinity River and Dallas. And lastly, cleanups and construction projects to make areas more accessible to park users will have immediate effects. Just between the 3 sites Garret mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, Fraser Dam, Hines Park, and Harold Simmons Park, crew members have the opportunity to make a positive impact on over 320 acres along the Trinity River in Dallas. So it's our hope that crew members, through participating in meaningful conservation work experience and leadership development training, continue to advocate for the Trinity River within their communities. In the short term, we really want these leaders to support our conservation efforts by helping to recruit for and conduct volunteer projects, assist in outreach efforts about park design and improvements, and share their experiences at the Trinity River with others. Long term, we hope they go on to participate in decision-making processes concerning their environment, their communities, and their city, continue to be dedicated stewards of the river, and perhaps even pursue careers in conservation with our organizations and beyond. So on behalf of Trinity Park Conservancy,
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kim Marotta. I am the Global Senior Director of Sustainability and Enterprise Risk Management at Molson Coors. It's really great to be with you here today. I know we're doing a little bit of virtual and a little bit in person, but this is just an opportunity for me to share a little bit about why water matters so much for us at Molson Coors, and then talk about some of the projects that we're working on in Texas. So you can see just by the title of the slide, nothing could be any more clear than no water, no beer. So let's get into it and I'll tell you a little bit why that matters. So for us, when we talk about sustainability, we really talk about it really simply. So every time a beverage is picked up, there's an imprint left behind. And we want to make sure it's a positive one. And that's a positive one on our people and our planet. And so when we think about our imprint, we really look at it in those dimensions or in those pillars, our people and our planet. And just to give you a perspective, it's everything from what we're doing around people to what we're doing around packaging, what we're really focusing on climate, and then certainly what we're focusing in on water. And so from a water standpoint, it's about our brewery operations, it's about our watersheds where our breweries are located, and it's about the barley that we're growing in our agricultural supply chain and making sure that we are sustainably growing that barley. But why does this matter so much for us? Like we said in the beginning, no water, no beer. Water is the main ingredient in our products. It actually flows through almost every step of our brewing operations. From the time that you put the seed in the ground, your nice malted barley, growing that barley through the entire brewing process. It helps, we heat it up, we cool it down, we use it in our pasteurizers, and then as I mentioned, it's the main ingredient in our product. So it's so important for us as a beverage company, as a beer company, to protect that really valuable water resource. And why are we thinking about it or really focusing on some of the efforts in Texas and across the world? For us, we believe wholeheartedly it is a shared responsibility. It doesn't just fall on the shoulders of governments or public entities. It's really important for all of us to collaborate to create real change. And we believe that the private sector has a very large and substantial role to play in that area. So just backing up for a second, I'm going to move my picture so you can see the slide. When we talk about what we're doing in our brewery watersheds, just to give you an assessment of what that means, we do what we call watershed risk assessments. And we have 28 breweries across the world. And we rely on a good high quality and quantity of water in those watersheds. So we evaluate each watershed to see if there's risk. Is there a long-term risk of either water scarcity or water drought, water stress? So for us, we do that. And part of the reason we focus on Texas is we've got that great brewery, hopefully many of you have seen, right in Fort Worth, right off the interstate. And it relies on the Trinity River watershed as its source of water. And as you well know, that watershed is stretched. It is relied on by 50% of the population in the state of Texas. And as you also well know, being Texans, with the population growth and demand, the agricultural growth and demand, the industry growth and demand, the watersheds in Texas are extremely stressed and have often experienced drought-like conditions. So we selected this watershed not only to show good leadership and protect the valuable water resources, but also to engage with others and helping collaborate and look at issues like turbidity and other issues like low dissolved oxygen or high nutrient levels. So let me tell you a little bit about what we did. It actually, and I shouldn't say we, I should use this really, it started with the prices. So this is Gary and Sue Price. They are also within the Trinity River watershed, and they have a cattle ranch about an hour and 45 minutes outside of our Fort Worth area. And back in probably about 2011 or 2010, we were introduced to the Prices. They're a fabulous, very strong conservationist, environmentally minded couple and family on this ranch. And so they were interested in looking at some conservation and some sustainable practices. And we came to them through a nonprofit partner and said, we will be willing to help invest with you and actually help put these practices on your land. And then we'll work together to see the results and see where we can go. So Molson Coors helped fund some of their practices. We actually planted riparian buffers. So on those days, because this is really during some of the toughest drought conditions that you've experienced, when the rain actually would come and move so quickly into the rivers, it helped keep it out of the riverways and the sediment from going in, and really help keep it, and improve the quality of water within the riverways. We also planted native vegetation. And in fact, what we did is we planted this prairie grass that's taller than a human being. And what that was also able to do is when the water came down, hold the water in the ground longer. And as I mentioned, they're cattle ranchers. So we also work with them to put up some fencing. And that helped keep the cattle from going through the rivers, ruining, the sides of the banks of the rivers, and really keep everything in better conditions. And what we were able to see after about a year or two of working with the prices is really remarkable results. I know you all probably remember that drought real closely, and other droughts that you've seen throughout the years. But at that time, so many cattle ranchers were losing their cattle. The rivers had dried up. They were really just barren. And it was really dire circumstances. But the prices, because of this, type of actions and others that they put in, they didn't lose a single head of cattle. And even more so, they didn't even have to bring in any extra hay, because they were able to keep their grass and everything so moist so that they can actually feed their cattle. So you can imagine we were thrilled, and we worked with the prices, and we brought in other nonprofit partners. Trinity River Water Association was one of them at the time. And we started to do kind of lunch and learns and practices on their ranch, and other ranchers and landowners and farmers came just to learn a little bit more about what was happening. And then slowly that started to build. We got to about 2012, and our program evolved, and it was called Water as a Crop, and still is called that. And one of our major partners in that program has been NRCS, and they've been able to use NWQI equip funds to help also fund this programs and others. So they came in first with the prices, and the Tarrant Regional Water District, who's been fabulous, and we work with them hand in hand on their long-term strategic plan, as well as the Texas State Soil and Water Conservation Board, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, EPA, Navarro Soil and Water Conservation District, Ellis Prairie Soil and Water Conservation District, and then many other private sector partners. And collaboratively, we were able to grow from 2012 to 2020, this long-standing partnership. And we were able to bring others to the table and really continue to drive and really leverage some great results. So now fast forward to 2020, we have now tackled over 64,000 acres that are all relying on the Trinity River watershed. We have over 250 landowners and growers and farmers and ranchers that are part of the program. In the last 2 years, we've actually implemented 16 different conservation practices. So everything from low-till, no-till, soil health management, riparian buffers, cover crops, a long list of conservation practices. And what we're really proud of is collectively, all of these partners have been able to restore over 7.5 billion gallons of water to the Trinity River watershed. So just, we're super excited about the role we play, but also are really passionate about this ability of working together across industry, across all practices to really drive, very exciting and hopefully successful results. In addition to those, just some other obviously really important metrics. Just in the last 2 years, the practices that we've put collaboratively on the ground have reduced the phosphorus reduction by 5,162 pounds. We've also reduced nitrogen loads by 58,000, little more than 58,000 pounds, and a total sediment reduction of over 2,000 tons. So where are we going from here? We started to expand. As a company, we got really excited. Our brands got excited. They care about what's happening in water. So one of our major brands, Coors Seltzer, has brought the notion of water restoration within their marketing campaign. So for every 12-pack of Coors Seltzer that you purchase, we will restore 500 gallons of water. And we're aiming to actually restore 5 billion gallons of water, not just in Texas, unfortunately, but all across the country with our Coors Seltzer campaign. This is just another example through the brand that we're working on a project in the McKinley Parks Foundation. And it's a habitat restoration project. And it's all about planting native riparian trees. We're looking and aiming to plant 1,670 trees that will help put up a riparian buffer and positively impact the streams in that area. And another step in the right direction is we were able to bring others to the table. So many of you in this room have now joined what we are calling the Texas Water Action Collaborative. Because of the great, and exciting work that we saw happening in the Trinity River, we brought other partners to the table, including Frito-Lay North America, PepsiCo, Coca-Cola North America, and Coca-Cola Southwest Beverages, Keurig Dr. Pepper, Limnotech, Ecolab, and Danone North America. And believe me, the list is continuing to grow. We also brought other conservation and government members to the table. Bonneville Environmental Foundation, who I should mention is our key partner in the Coors Seltzer campaign as well. NRCS still, Tarrant Regional Water District, Trinity River Authority, our great host today, the Texan by Nature, and the University of Texas at Arlington. So through this partnership, what we're aiming to do is start with the roots that we have, the one that we mentioned earlier that has 7.5 or 6 billion gallons restored, try to get other corporations involved in that project, and at the same time, find other conservation practices that have similar notions and similar aims in mind. So we're hoping it's not just one company, it's not just one government agency or one conservation group, but if we collectively work together.
Hi, I'm Frank Weary, and I'm chairman of the Exploration Green Conservancy, an all-volunteer nonprofit dedicated to the Exploration Green project. The project itself is a conversion of an old golf course into a combination of stormwater detention, recreation, and conservation area. It's a joint venture between ourselves, the Conservancy, and the Clear Lake City Water Authority. We're located in southeast Harris County, southeast Houston, about a mile north of the Johnson Space Center. We are completely surrounded by homes, apartments, and some retail. When the area started development in 1965 to support the Manned Space Center, stormwater detention was not a tool in the toolbox for flood mitigation. So no stormwater detention was built. By the early 2000s, we were experiencing some fairly severe flooding. Pictures here are from an 8-inch rain. And it didn't take a big rain. 8 to 10-inch rains are pretty common in Clear Lake. So we were seeing flooding fairly often. But we were built to the standards that existed for the county and the city. And so the county and the city weren't interested in doing flood mitigation projects. They didn't have the money. Clear Lake City Water Authority is charged with responsibility for getting stormwater runoff, surface drainage, into the channels that are owned by the county. So they looked around and said, hey, let's find out what could be done for flood mitigation. They went to Rice University and commissioned a couple of hydrology studies to recommend what they might do. The studies found 2 primary observations. First, rainwater falls much heavier in Clear Lake than it does for the standards of the Harris County and the city of Houston. Recommended changing the standard that we used for flood mitigation from a 6-inch rain to a 12-inch rain. They also looked around and said, hey, the old golf course that just shut down is piped up to get surface drainage from 2,000 acres that surround it. We recommend you buy the old golf course and convert it to stormwater detention because it's already piped up for it. You don't have to spend a whole lot of money for creating the infrastructure to support that. So in 2005, the Water Authority began to move forward with buying the golf course. It took a lawsuit and 6 years to complete that process. It also gave time for the Water Authority to think about what they might do in addition to stormwater detention. They had some ideas, but didn't know what the community really wanted. So they decided, let's ask the community. We're a mile away from the Space Center. We got rocket scientists that live right here. Let's ask them what they want to do. So we scheduled a series of town hall meetings. First one was just information sharing. The second meeting, we took the ideas that came out of the first meeting, categorized them into 9 major categories, and we asked the 400 people that attended to self-select which one of those ideas they wanted to follow up on, telling them what we're going to do is let you form a subcommittee, choose your own chairman, go out and spend the next 4 months fleshing out the ideas, the concepts that are here, coming back with information on the benefits, costs, or funding possibilities, how we move forward with the concept that you're wanting to follow. They did that, and by October, we had our 3rd town hall meeting. Again, 200 to 400 people out each session. Almost 400 people attended that 3rd session. The committees reported out on their various projects, their various concepts to fit in with the project. At the end of the presentations, everyone at the meeting was asked to rank the various proposals in their preference order. And that became the input for the master plan. A lot of good ideas came forward. A lot of good ideas were implemented. Some of them were completely the opposite of what we expected going in. Finally, in 2013, a year after we started, the master plan came forward. 200 acres, 6 miles of trails, 5,000 trees, 150,000 wetlands, holding 500 million gallons worth of water, keeping that water out of the bayou during the heavy rain periods, lowering flood probability for 2,000 homes that would otherwise be flooded. Great benefit there. Master plan has basically been unchanged since it originally came forward. $50 million is the cost of the plan. 40 million of that was going to be paid for by the Water Authority. They were responsible for getting the water. So they were going to pay for the excavation, the engineering, and the grading. The amenities to go with it, the trails, the trees, the benches, on and on, that was coming from the Conservancy. We would raise money through grants from foundations, state organizations, donations from corporate, donations from individuals, and from civic organizations. We've done pretty well. Of the $10 million we've so far raised or got commitment for $9.5 million. Coming up pretty close. So 2016, 3 years after the master plan issued, we start construction. In the interim, we had organizations come forward and say, hey, we want to give you the wetland plants that you need to plant, but we need to put some nurseries in there so that we can grow the wetlands plants, let them replicate so we don't have to continue buying these things all the time. We had another organization come forward and say, hey, we want to give you Trees for Houston, 5,000 trees, 1,000 per section. We'll give you the first 1,000 now so that you can take them, let them mature a little bit so they have a better chance of survival. Great, but we need someplace to put them. So we started a tree nursery as well as our wetlands nursery. Both great ideas because it gave us a way to bring in volunteers, give them something productive to do, and give them training that they could share with other people on the care of the plants, the importance of the plants, and how to put them out there. Finally, in October of 2016, we started construction, had the permits, had the detailed engineering done. Doing the project and doing that first phase in 3 different pieces worked great because the first piece we did, which was small, worked as a great demonstration project. We could bring in the public, we could bring in fundraisers to say, look, this is what we're talking about. This is what it really means. Gave us some credibility with both groups. Things going along pretty well, finished the first one, second one, working on the third one, had it about 80% done. When in August of 2017, Harvey came to visit. Harvey filled up the completed portions of the lake, both sections, overnight. Filled them up. It overflowed the dam that we had separating the completed portion from the incomplete, washed it away that night. Put 100 million gallons, 12 foot of water in that section that stayed there until it could drain out into the bayou almost a week later. Worked exactly like it was supposed to. The whole project will fill up and drain out without any manual intervention, no valves, no pumps. Mother Nature does it for us. And it worked. We know of at least 150 homes that were spared from flooding. There are 150 homes that we have documented that flooded in a 6 to 10 inch rain repeatedly. They did not flood in the 50 plus inches of rain from Harvey. It works. We had doubters that overnight became supporters. We've completed 2.5 sections. One of the sections we had to break into 2 pieces for engineering considerations. That section will be completed this year, along with section 4, section 5 next year. The only thing that's left is a grand entry plaza that will serve as a magnet to pull people into the project. Great idea, great concept. We're in detailed architectural design on that now. That's where we need the other $500,000 is to complete that. We have base funding there already. We're working on it. We'll get there. Getting community support and involvement has been a keystone for the project all along. Our nursery days, planting days shown at the bottom there. People of all ages, kids to mature adults, working together to do the planting, to care for the plants in the nursery. We also recognize that not everybody is going to do that. So we scheduled squawk walks, birding events, guided birding events, wetland walkabouts, same sort of thing for taking people around, showing them the plants that are there, telling them why they're important, telling them what they do. Celebration events, Earth Day, grand openings, what have you. Been very successful. We were running an event about 1 per week until COVID hit. After that, went down very quickly. We're beginning to build back now as things open up a little bit. One thing that the COVID experience did is that medically it was recommended you go outside for exercise. Go outside where you can socially distance, where you can be around other people, but socially distance and get some exercise. Our trails were designed expressly for that. They're 10 foot wide. You can meet somebody coming in the trail and still have 6 foot between you without any problems. Our users went from 100 per day to over 300 a day and continue to climb. Can't do it alone. Got to have partners. The folks at the top all gave us support, counseling, information, guidance, and in many cases, help on getting people out. Master naturalists were great at training some of our volunteers. Folks at the bottom, major funding partners. Can't do it without the help. We've come a long way. We've got a lot left to do. We've been recognized multiple times in local and national publications. We've received 14 different awards, local, regional, national. Our $50 million investment is beginning to pay off economically. Before the project, the area around the old golf course was sliding into blight. Home prices were depressed in that area relative to the rest of Clear Lake. Once the project went in, home prices have rebounded. They are now on a par with the rest of Clear Lake. That movement was worth $120 million. The 2,000 homes we're protecting from flooding, on average, would flood about every 7 years. Now we'll avoid that. The savings from that is about $300 million. But more important to us are the people and ecological benefits. We talked some about the lifestyle, the number of folks out on the trails. Ecologically, the wetlands soak up fertilizers, road oils, heavy metals that would otherwise go into the bay. The fact that we've converted from a manicured golf course to open green space has been a boon to local wildlife. The number of species went from about 300 to over 1,000 and climbing, different species. And the population, the number of birds, reptiles, has seen a similar increase of 3 to 4 times. The fact that we do this community gathering thing also gives us a great benefit because we can train people on what's going on there, how it benefits them. But for us, probably the most satisfying is the fact that the community has come together, worked together to bring this thing to pass. More work to do. We got to finish. We've got to open it up again. We've got to get funding. But the other thing that's happening is that people are now coming to us and asking us, how did you do that? What did you do? What exactly have you got? How did you put it together? We're beginning to serve as a model, and we think it's worthwhile of replication. So yeah, we're more than willing to share that story. You know,
Hi, I'm Sarah Ziomek, Sustainability Project Manager at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. DFW is honored to be recognized as part of the Texan by Nature 20 for the second year in a row. We're grateful for the work Texan by Nature has done to connect conservation and business leaders across the state. And we've been inspired by the achievements of our fellow Texans and look forward to helping advance each other's efforts to make a positive impact on people, prosperity, and the environment. Spanning almost 27 square miles and more than 17,000 acres, DFW Airport covers an area larger than Manhattan. We're owned by the cities of Dallas and Fort Worth, and like a city, we have our own post office, police, fire, and EMS departments. DFW Airport also serves as a major economic generator for the North Texas region, producing over $37 billion in economic impact each year. We're proud to be the first carbon neutral airport in North America and the largest in the world. North Texas is among the country's fastest growing regions, and with rapid growth comes competition for resources. For example, population growth stresses our transportation infrastructure, a physical resource, and increases congestion. Congestion produces increased vehicle emissions and negatively impacts our local air quality, an important natural resource. And so as the airport grows, we seek to do so in a sustainable way that simultaneously expands capacity while minimizing strain on our resources. We are constantly evaluating how our operations impact the community, the environment, and the economy. Like many other large infrastructure developments, airports can be both major economic engines and potential threats to human and environmental health and well-being. And while airports are widely recognized for their economic contributions, they have historically been viewed as sources of noise, air, and other environmental pollution. The Dallas-Fort Worth region is home to the corporate headquarters for over 20 Fortune 500 companies, and businesses regularly cite DFW Airport as one of the reasons for relocating here. As demand for goods and services increases, aircraft must also increase, though. Increased aircraft activity translates to more aircraft noise and emissions for communities near the airport. But at the same time, if an airport does not expand its capacity, people and businesses may relocate to areas that have better supply chain connectivity. So why is conservation and sustainability important to DFW Airport? Airports are definitely engines of the economy, but they also have potential to be engines of health, both for the environment and the surrounding communities. We often refer to DFW Airport as a complex, interconnected ecosystem. Our airfield and terminals lie at the geographic and operational center of this ecosystem, which relies on a vast network of transportation infrastructure, utilities, and communications to facilitate the flow of people and freight between air and land. And all of the activities connecting air and land take place at an intersection of the natural and the built environments, in a location where you can find both miles of runways and miles of forested streams. We recognize that the impacts we have on one area translate to cascading impacts across the entire system. For example, economic growth enables our region's prosperity, but it also comes at a cost. Development places a burden on our natural systems, including our air, land, and water. And at the same time, degraded natural systems place a burden on human well-being and inhibit economic development. It's clear that airports have the potential to have significant impacts on our natural, social, and economic systems. And in order to achieve sustainable development for our airport, we must adopt a holistic systems approach to how we do business. In a 1987 report titled Our Common Future, also known as the Brundtland Report, the United Nations World Commission on Environment and Development first introduced the concept of sustainable development, defined as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. The report investigated the causes of environmental degradation and outlined the need to understand the interconnections between the environment, human actions, and economic growth, which today we know as the three pillars of sustainability: people, planet, and profit. In 2015, world leaders adopted these 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, to expand on the three pillars of sustainability. And our philosophy on sustainability is that it must be a balanced approach that includes consideration of all three pillars. If we focus only on the planet and people but ignore economics, we won't have the funding to invest in people and the planet. When DFW opened in 1974, it had 4 terminals and 3 runways. Today, we have 5 terminals and 7 runways. The airport is a busy transportation hub that connects people and goods all over the world, but it also supports industrial, office, and retail development outside the areas used for aviation operations. We recognize that resource consumption cannot continue to grow at the pace of our region or our industry post-COVID. This will lead to rising costs, operational inefficiencies, negative experiences for our customers, and environmental degradation. And so our strategy has been focused on decoupling growth from negative impacts and depletion of our resources. Our path to carbon neutrality is one example. In 2016, DFW became the first airport in North America to achieve carbon neutrality. And from 2010 to 2019, we reduced absolute carbon emissions by 79%, even while total passengers increased by 29% over that same period. We also transitioned to 100% renewable electricity from Texas wind farms and achieved a 32% reduction in electricity costs, demonstrating that sustainability can be good for business. This achievement showcased a successful blueprint and created an expectation for us to tackle more complex challenges. Carbon neutrality focused on air, and we also have programs in place to address the other resources. We adopt a broad view of resources. We consider our impacts on natural resources like air, land, and water, as well as our use of resources like energy and infrastructure. Our initiatives include the management of water, waste, energy, emissions and air quality, noise, and wildlife. With our focus on decoupling growth from negative impacts, we've historically concentrated on conserving our resources. Now we're moving beyond a do no harm approach to a do more good mindset, we're shifting from conservation to conservation plus restoration. We want to demonstrate how the pursuit of restoration goals and a focus on improving ecosystem services can provide tangible economic value to our business. Ecosystem services are the benefits people obtain from ecosystems, both directly and indirectly. These include obvious benefits like the provision of clean water and food, as well as essential services we rely on, like flood regulation, water purification, and opportunities for recreation and learning. Our recent work to develop a tree conservation plan for the airport is an example of our focus on improving and restoring the healthy functioning of our ecosystems, even though we're in an urban area. 23% of the airport's land area is forested, and our trees provide us and our communities a myriad of benefits. They capture and store carbon, and they purify the air. They're one of the most cost-effective means of mitigating the urban heat island effect. By shading buildings and cooling the surrounding air, they can help improve building energy conservation and reduce electricity costs for cooling in the summers. Trees also help prevent erosion and treat stormwater runoff, helping to filter out pollutants before the runoff reaches our streams, like Bear Creek, shown in this photo. Trees also provide us a noise buffer between the airport and the community, offer aesthetic value, and create a unique sense of place. Spending time around trees and green spaces is also linked to improvements in mental and physical well-being. And we're looking to maximize all these benefits by enhancing tree cover across the airport. Instead of only preserving existing trees, we're also strategically working to identify areas to plant new trees. Waste reduction is another key priority for us. DFW recently launched a zero waste goal to achieve 90% landfill diversion rates. In 2019, Texas generated more than 7 pounds of solid waste per person per day, representing a 6% increase over the past 5 years. And over the same period, DFW Airport's annual waste to landfill costs doubled as landfill capacity in Texas decreased. While new landfills are being opened, they're located further from the airport, which will cause our hauling costs to increase further into the future. And right now, North Texas has only 35 years of landfill capacity remaining. As part of our Zero Waste initiative, we're working to transform our business into a circular economy through responsible sourcing, consumption, and reuse of products. We've implemented a successful program to recycle 100% of the waste cooking oil generated by over 200 restaurants in our terminals. Over 200 tons of waste cooking oil has been recycled to date and is being used as a feedstock to generate renewable fuel through our partnership with Neste. This year, DFW also implemented a new contract for organic waste sortation and collection services. This service will allow the airport to collect food waste from aircraft catering kitchens, hotels, offices, and terminal concessions, and haul it to local farms and compost facilities. Construction waste has also been an early focus of our initiative. Last year, DFW achieved a 99% diversion of waste from landfill for all construction projects, which resulted in the avoidance of more than $25 million in disposal costs. To divert construction waste from landfills, materials like concrete, asphalt, and soil are routinely recycled and reused in other airport projects. For example, our recent project to rehabilitate our busiest runway consisted of a full-depth reconstruction of 2.5 miles of pavement and subgrade that's more than 5 feet thick. Some of the old concrete slabs were crushed and then reused to form the entry drive for our new Department of Public Safety headquarters. While DFW Airport purchases 100% renewable electricity, energy efficiency is still a priority. As we increase our reliance on electricity, managing how and when we use energy is critical to reducing costs, improving resilience, and lowering our stress on the grid. The recent winter storm underscored the importance of sound energy management. DFW recently upgraded terminal ramp lighting to energy-efficient LED technology. In this photo, the bright white lights around the horseshoe-shaped terminals in the center are the new LED fixtures, and the yellow lights are the older high-pressure sodium fixtures. The new LED lights and controls provide a 75% reduction in energy use, saving more than 4 million kilowatt hours of electricity each year and an estimated $250,000 in costs. The new control system also allows light levels to be raised when there's activity at the gate and then lowered for the remainder of the night, limiting unnecessary light pollution. The previous fixtures were not adjustable, so the lights were at maximum levels all night long. And going forward, we're investigating other strategies to reduce light pollution and participate in the Lights Out Texas initiative. We're also actively exploring new technologies to reduce the energy needs of our buildings and updating our green building standards. Some examples include high efficiency heating and cooling equipment, as well as dynamic glazing. Dynamic glass, or smart glass, adjusts tint levels automatically in response to outside weather and sunlight by passing a low voltage current through a metal coating on the glass. Dynamic glass reduces heat gain into the building, which lowers energy use for cooling, and it also improves passenger comfort by reducing glare while still allowing in daylight. Dynamic glass has been installed at select locations in our terminals, and large-scale installations are located in the new Terminal D extension, as well as our new Integrated Operations Center. Indoor air quality sensors are also being installed at both facilities to help ensure we provide healthy air to customers and employees. We're also building on our strategic partnership with the Department of Energy and the National Renewable Energy Laboratory to optimize energy consumption using artificial intelligence. When passenger volumes plummeted at the beginning of COVID, we expected energy use in our terminals to drop as well, but it actually increased. Going forward, we want to learn how to use advanced modeling of our facilities to optimize our energy use dynamically. Sustainable water management benefits the region and its water supply, which is critical as we face more frequent periods of drought. DFW has partnered with neighboring cities to create a reclaimed water delivery system and recycle treated wastewater for irrigation and other non-drinking purposes. The use of reclaimed water has reduced potable water use by about 100 million gallons per year. DFW has also been able to further reduce the amount of potable water used for irrigation by watering the on-site golf course with non-potable water from our lake, pictured here. We're committed to improving water quality as well, and we participate in the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality's Clean Rivers program. Through our watershed management program, we monitor the quality of surface water entering and leaving the airport so that we can understand our contributions and mitigate negative impacts. Approximately 1,900 acres of DFW property is protected from future development, and the majority of our protected areas fall within the floodplains, plus a buffer of our major waterways. Maintaining natural riparian corridors around our streams helps protect the quality of our surface waters. Finally, it's important to note that we didn't get to where we are today on our own. Our success depends on our partnerships with a very diverse group of internal and external partners. At DFW Airport, our vision is to see travel transformed. We recognize the significance of our impact on the North Texas region, and we want to establish the airport not only as an engine of the economy, but also as an engine of health, both for humans and for the environment. Recognizing that our natural resources underpin the foundations of our economy and of human well-being is one thing. Translating that knowledge into operational changes is a big.
Okay, so it's time for our panel discussion. I think we have one in-person panel member, Sarah Ziomek. I'm sorry, Sarah. And on our remote, we should have someone with Trinity River crew. Oh, that's great. So we have two. We'll entertain people while you're making your way down here. So also joining us, I think Kim Marotta with Molson Coors. And is that Frank Weary with Exploration Green? Very good. Okay. So questions for our panelists. I might want to start off with one for Frank. It was Frank with Exploration Green, some amazing results that you were able to demonstrate there, but hard work and hard-won victories over a long time period. The financial impacts that seem to be directly measured by increasing the floodplain capacity in Houston. Is there opportunities, and have there been some explorations of replicating that, but perhaps with private investment? And when you look at a $50 million project that arguably saves $300 million over a 7-year period, that seems to be ripe for private investment somehow.
It might be a good idea for folks like insurance companies, what have you, to look into. It tends to come up more often. Most of the questions that we get are from other groups like homeowners, various municipal utility districts. How did you do it? What did you do? What's it look like? And we're more than willing to share that information and give them ideas on how they might be able to move forward.
That's great. Good success there. Do we have questions up there yet? Jenny?
She doesn't wear my sunglasses.
Okay, so a question for Sarah. How many other, so Dfw Airport was first in many ways, becoming carbon neutral and remains the largest carbon neutral airport. How many other airports have been encouraged just as somewhat of a byproduct of DFW's success there?
Well, today there are over 60 carbon neutral airports throughout the world, but there are many other airports in various stages of their sustainability journey, whether that's carbon management, air quality, water quality. And so as airports, we meet regularly and we talk with our peers at other airports and others in the aviation sector to share best practices and share what we're learning. Because at DFW, we've had the opportunity and the support to test new ideas and new initiatives, and we want to constantly share what we learn. But we want to share what we learn with others beyond the aviation sector. So we want to talk to other industries, other sectors, and share with them as well, to be a leader in sustainability and conservation, not just for airports, but for the country and the world as a whole.
Okay, well, a little bit of a follow-up there. Do you use a uniform set of measures that you can compare yourself to over time so that you can, I guess, certify to that carbon neutrality claim?
Yes, we do. Each year we measure our carbon footprint, and that is certified by a third party, and it's audited. And so we're able to measure our progress year over year by measuring our carbon footprint that way. With other sustainability metrics like water quality, we have key performance indicators. We measure energy reduction, kilowatt hours of energy use, gallons of fuel reduced, gallons of water saved. So we have key performance indicators that we're able to measure our progress internally year over year and compared to others too.
That's great. Questions from our Slack channel. So those of you that are remote, remember that you can come on to our Slack channel and ask questions. Looks like we've got one up there.
Yeah, this is for Richard with the Trinity River crew. How could other organizations replicate the program that you've put together?
Well, Groundwork USA is a national program, and we're one of the trusts under that program. Texas is a very large state, and there are other cities that could benefit from the Groundwork Dallas program that we offer. I mean, we have Houston, you have San Antonio, Austin, El Paso, yet as large as the state is, the only groundwork trust in it is in Dallas. And working with these youth, and I'm sure a lot of these other organizations understand that when you can open up their eyes to the environment, they can use that education to identify problems, give them problems that they can solve. Obviously, you don't want to set them up for failure, so start small in their neighborhoods, and then you can start building up to your community, to your city, to your state, your county, federal programs, to give them opportunities in the outdoors. We provide recreational opportunities. A lot of these youth in these underserved neighborhoods have never been outdoors. A lot of them that we take camping 90% easy have not been camping in a tent before. And we provide opportunities to go to some iconic national parks. We send youth out to do conservation work at Glacier National Park or Yellowstone or the Grand Tetons as part of this program that we provide in the summertime. So we could benefit by expanding this program into other cities and giving these other youth that are underserved these same opportunities.
That's great. Question for Kim with Molson Coors. As you expand brewing capacity across your enterprise, how will you meet the future water demands, and are there some different strategies you will use going forward in the development of your brewing capacity, or however you talk about that, than might have been incorporated into facilities in the past?
Sure, thanks for the question. I'm laughing as I'm looking at the screen though, and the 2 potted plants, and I'm hoping that maybe there's not a sign up there that says, not, smarter than a potted plant. But I just can't help, sorry, I was just looking at that. No, really great question. So when we look at our watersheds and we look at our breweries, we have about 29 breweries across the world, and we want to make sure to protect the watersheds where we have the biggest issues, so stress or scarcity like we have in Texas. So we tend to direct most of our capital investments toward those breweries where we can really make a difference. We also tend to do most of our innovations and most of our work within those breweries, because if we can not only reduce the water that we're using in our breweries, reuse the water that we're using in our breweries, and recycle, that's where we can have a really positive impact. And as I talked about before with that other program, it goes hand in hand. So it's one thing to be really tight within your own house, but to really look within that watershed and collaborate with the other water users, including Dallas, Fort Worth, and others, and really look for opportunities where we can keep water in those watersheds so that it's available for the long-term use for everyone. And so that's really kind of our 2-point strategy when we're looking at breweries and brewery watersheds.
All right. Well, no beer, no water is a real compelling, or no water, no beer, rather, is a real compelling title. I'm wondering if you might think of, drink beer, save water. That one's free, by the way. I'll donate that to your marketing people. No charge.
Sounds good. Thanks.
So, question up top.
Hi. My question's for Dfw Airport. You mentioned that the airport was investigating some other ways to reduce light pollution. What are some of the challenges that you face in doing that now, and how might you overcome them?
Hi, that's a great question. Some of the challenges that we face is that we're an essential operation. Air travel doesn't stop at night. So one of the challenges is that within our central terminal area, there are facilities that the lights have to stay on. For safety, our parking garages are one example, and lights out on the ramp, out on the tarmac, so that pilots and ground crews can see safely. But beyond that, there are lots of other opportunities to reduce light pollution, and then along with that, reduce energy use. DFW Airport is massive, and most people just, when they picture it, they think of the terminals alone and the airfield. But we have several buildings across our campus. We're a city, essentially. And so there's several other buildings and facilities throughout our campus that aren't directly related to essential air operations, and so those would be prime for light reduction opportunities at night. So both facilities that we operate ourselves and that some of our tenants operate. Great question.
One more question up top.
Yes. Mine's for Exploration Green. I had wanted to ask, over the past year in the midst of COVID-19, has there been substantial hurdles that you guys have had to overcome in terms of volunteer work related to the park? I know I saw photos during your presentation, but navigating through COVID and also the opportunities with manpower.
Yeah, COVID did have an impact on us relative to our volunteers. Instead of having 175 to 100 people show up for nursery maintenance, we had to limit it. Instead of getting 50 to 200 people out for doing tree and wetland planting, we're holding it back to like 25 people, what have you. On the other hand, COVID, as I mentioned, did have a positive impact on the number of users of the trails because of the encouragement to get people outside and exercise outside. Our trails were designed for exactly that type of effort. The only problem we had was all of Houston early in the COVID period shut down all of the parks, all the city and county parks on Memorial Day. We decided we would shut down on Memorial Day rather than be swamped with people that we couldn't have them socially distanced. That's the only day that we have been down throughout the entire COVID period.
Question for Rick with Trinity River Crew. So one of the objectives, it sounded like in your presentation, was that you're showing these kids a pathway to career opportunities, perhaps in conservation. Have you been able yet to see any fruit of that labor there? Any interests in career opportunities? And how are you going about the career opportunity pathway?
Our program has started back in 2017, so we still have high school students that were freshmen that are still coming up through the program. Sure. So it's going to be a while before we see those fruits. We've had a lot of our students go off to be scientists. Some of them scientists, some have gone off to do conservation work with different corps around the U.S. That's been really good for them. As far as the job education, Kathryn, who's our youth coordinator or our education director, she takes them through the different processes of becoming an environmentalist, to look at the environment, testing water, getting them certified, exposing them to this youth to different opportunities out in the environmental field. And then hopefully they can pick up on this interest and pick up that as a career. During the job training program, we also introduce them to other industries. Not everybody's going to be in the environmental field. They may want to go into something else. This was a tough year for COVID, like it was everybody. And but 2 years ago, we had the Dallas Zoo was involved, to get into working with animals, working with the city. We have a training program that's kicking off this year to take the youth through a program that once they have completed it, they'll be able to say that I finished the Groundwork Dallas job training program, put that on their application process or application, and use that to further bump them up to being hired with the city of Dallas. We focus a lot on underserved youth. I know that if you grew up in that environment, I was one of those guys, you didn't know what was out there. You didn't know who could help you. You didn't have a light at the end of the tunnel. You're wondering, when I get out of high school, am I going to get a job, or what kind of jobs are going to be out there? So that's one of the things we focus on, is give them that light, to show them different opportunities, let them pick their path, and hopefully, they succeed in life. The other part of that is I like pushing people outside of their comfort factor. For those folks who stay in their comfort bubble all the time, you'll never experience anything new. You'll be afraid to take that extra step. You'll be afraid to go try this out. So I like to push that envelope a little bit to let them know that you can do these things and still be safe, and look at these other opportunities that may be out there and just reach for them and give that a shot.
That's great. You guys are doing great work. We have a question up top.
Yes. So this question is for Sarah. What are DFW's water quality KPIs, and can you share your expertise on elevating the importance of protecting water quality across all industries in Texas?
That's a great question. Right now we measure both water quality and water conservation. So on the water conservation side, we're looking at gallons of potable water that we are able to reduce. For water quality, we're looking at our impact on our receiving waters. We have 8 watersheds across the airport. So we're continuously monitoring dissolved oxygen, hydrocarbons, things that could be runoff from our industrial activities, sediment possibly from construction. But going forward, we want to expand this, and water and biodiversity are one of our major focus areas, our major North Stars, we're calling them, moving forward. And we recognize that water is a vital resource, and that's something our whole panel has touched on today. I think several people have mentioned the multi-year drought we had, lasting from 2010 to 2015, where lake levels were low. The city of Wichita Falls, for example, was close to running out of drinking water. And so we realize water is a critical resource for all of us, no matter what region you're in. So going forward, we're looking to expand and use not just the KPIs we have in place today, but to develop new ones that are more focused on the functioning of our healthy ecosystems, our healthy streams, healthy riparian corridors. So that's something that we're currently working on today.
And then I have a question for Kim with Molson Coors. You mentioned during your presentation one of the ways you're kind of bringing the consumers into your conservation work with the seltzer campaign. Are you calculating the return on that, like monetarily or reputation, PR, and getting the consumers involved? Is there anything you would share with other industries or companies who are thinking about doing similar work?
Sure, a great question. You know, for us, we made the decision to really lead with our company first and then our brand second, because we really wanted to get that foundation. You know, we wanted to show the leadership, demonstrate the actions, and then figure out where our brands could play. So a couple of years ago, we did the research around core seltzer, and what made the most amount of sense from where we met, where we were as a company, where we could lead, and then how we could have it resonate through our brand. So just that initial insight about what mattered to our core seltzer drinkers really made a difference. And so as we measure it through the Bonneville Environmental Foundation and Limnotech, we are really focused on how much water gets restored. And we've made commitments to restore 5 billion gallons of water across America's riverways and waterways. And so that's certainly obviously tied to this is our projected sales numbers. Now, I would love to see that number become 10 billion and 20 billion, because that means we're doing something really well. It means our consumers are getting the message, they're feeling better about the brand, feeling better about purchasing it, and actually making those purchases. And as a result, more waterways are getting restored. But so we're definitely looking at it. We look at all of our brands really closely to see, you know, how the marketing might impact those areas, brand affinity, purchase intent, and sales. And I hope we see really good numbers as we keep moving forward.
I also have a question for Kim. On a local level and within the Trinity River watershed, kind of a two-part question. What opportunities are there for landowners within that watershed to participate with you? And then is there also an opportunity for other like-minded nonprofits and/or /research institutions to participate that aren't already on your very extensive list?
Absolutely. Yes, and yes, and yes. And you all well know that it might be an extensive list, but hopefully it's just the start, because there's extensive problems. So one of the really great opportunities today is to share this information. We just launched the Texas Water Action Collaborative on World Water Day. So on March 22nd, we would love to invite others to participate. If you're interested, if you're a landowner in the audience or a farmer, rancher, or grower, and you want to get involved, you could either, I know Joni's in the room, she could perhaps direct you and give some, direct information. But we right now are working through the NWI, the EQIP funds, and NRCS. And every year they help bring in ranchers and landowners into the project to help grow it, and then we help fund it. But we're looking to expand that across other conservation groups and other actions. As for the other companies or cities or NGOs that like to get involved, the more the merrier. What we tried to do is figure out what conservation groups needed, where corporations were focused and other stakeholders, and just bring those groups together. And what we've learned, because we're replicating a similar project that we did in California, sometimes it just takes like 1 or 2 to get started. So if you have a project and you're able to show the restore benefits, another beverage company might say, I'd like to get involved. I'll put in another $100,000 into that project, or I'll commit, $1 million over 3 years. So that's how we've seen projects really scale up. And that's where you can really make sizable change and have some sort of impact. So we'd invite anyone who's interested in joining us.
Great panel. Thank you to each of our speakers. And thank you for all the speakers that we had today and all of you that have participated. Please give this group a round of applause.
Thanks for having us. Have a good day, everybody.
So, what's the future of conservation? That's where we started off the day. Today we heard many examples that are shaping the future and the way we think about conservation. So what is the future? So we saw examples of innovation with overland partners, thinking of our spaces as nature centers instead of just buildings, reframing how we see a problem and a solution. It's collaboration. We saw that with Texas Children in Nature, the City of San Antonio, Marathon Petroleum. It's metrics focused, things that you can measure. We saw that with Texas Brigades. We saw that with Paso del Norte Trail. It's conservation and business working together. We saw that with cactus feeders, Dfw Airport, Trinity River crew. It's a reimagination of resources. We saw that with Exploration, Green Conservancy, and Molson Coors. It's realizing a return on conservation, a positive impact to our natural resources, our health, our economy, our Texas. It's a return that keeps us at the forefront of growth. Today, we have an opportunity to take what we've learned and do something different and new and realize a return that may not have yet been imagined. I encourage and challenge each of you to join us. Every Texan making a conservation impact. Thank you for being Texan by nature. Before we move to our final speaker, I just wanted to mention that an event like this doesn't happen by accident, and it's not easy to put together. There are 8 staff people for Texan by Nature that work hard to put events like this together, and I just wanted to recognize them. And you guys raise your hand if you can. Jenny Burden, Taylor Keys, Terry Pearsall, Lauren Hart, Kinsey Cherniak, Sahara Prabhu, Scott DuBois, and Amy Snellgrove. Thank you guys so much. And to introduce, what's that? That's right, thank you. See, there's an example right there of how things don't happen unless you've got good staff. So before we move on, we have one last video, and then we'll move to the introduction of our final speaker.
Green space is so important to have in your community. It is having a connection with nature, being able to use the space to exercise, to go out and meet your neighbors for a sense of community. When I'm walking around in Exploration Green, sometimes it's just to get my day started with nature and sunshine. That's what green space can do. It can be so positive for everybody to enjoy. It also protects my home and hundreds of my neighbors' homes. But it wasn't always like that here, at least not until the Exploration Green project got started.
The biggest storm we've had here has been Harvey. Dropped between 50 and 60 inches of rain in this area alone. We were impacted somewhat by Ike and Rita.
Anytime it rained, it didn't have to be a tropical storm or a hurricane. Our sinks wouldn't drain and the bathtubs would actually back up.
Over the last several decades in cities like Houston, we've seen development grow, and that has created more impervious surfaces, driveways, roadways, parking lots. Water that comes from storms doesn't have anywhere to go. And of course, it also creates problems with wildlife habitat and urban heat island effects. Communities are really getting creative when it comes to solutions.
This area was a golf course. The old golf course shut down in 2003. The owners didn't want to spend any more money on it than they had to, so it began to get overgrown. The land was no good for anybody and was very much an eyesore. In 2005, the Water Authority moved to start buying the old golf course for using it for stormwater detention. They knew that something more could be done with the land other than just putting a fence around a hole in the ground. So they went back and asked the community, what is it you want to see done with this besides floodwater detention? And the community said, green space. The goal of Exploration Green has been and continues to be flood mitigation. When it's complete, we'll be able to hold 500 million, half a billion gallons of water. But it's become a nature preserve, a center for the community, a real plus to the community values, while protecting all of the homes in the area. Phase 1 was about 80% complete, and then we got a visit from Harvey, dumping 50+ inches of rain in the area. That first section, which held about 100 million gallons worth of water, protected 150 homes, at least 150 homes.
Once they started the excavation on phase 2 of Exploration Green, we didn't have standing water in our yard anymore. We could flush our toilets again. We just saw an immediate difference because now there was actually a place for the water to drain to when it rains.
All of the flood water filling, draining out over 2 or 3 days, happens without any manual intervention, happens without any pumps. We work with Mother Nature, and she really helps us out. The wetlands we've created here clean up the water on its way to Galveston Bay.
These kinds of strategies can be replicated anywhere, and they don't just have to be about achieving stormwater goals. This approach has multiple benefits, including creating wildlife habitat, mitigating urban heat island effects, providing opportunities and places for people to be physically active, for community gathering spots.
It's so great to go out and enjoy Exploration Green for the nature and the beautiful space that it is, but it also protects my home from stormwater and flooding from hurricanes. But what it really does is bring the community together in the spirit of conservation. Exploration Green is why we moved here.
Can y'all see me? I need a little water under my feet here. Our final speaker needs no introduction. She leads with passion and grace. She inspires each of us and all of us to do better for each other in our natural environment. A native of West Texas, a lover of nature, a champion for women, an example for all of us. She has turned her background and passions into positive impact, not only for Texas, but the world. She took her love of reading and nature and Texas to the White House and shared a vision for each that continue to thrive today. It is truly an honor to work with her in realizing the dream and vision of Texan by Nature. Please join me in welcoming former and always First Lady and Texan by Nature founder, Laura Bush.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Cynthia. Thanks to you and to Texan by Nature board members who are here today. Tina Buford, Joe Crafton, Robert Horton, Elaine Magruder, Roxanne Newman, Neil Wilkins. Neil, thank you for being our MC. Thanks to all of the speakers today. I was so impressed with this idea of using the defunct golf course to mitigate flooding. It was really a really brilliant idea, and it might be something that could be replicated around the state, I think. A special thanks to our partners, HEB, Dell Technologies, Enbridge, Marathon Petroleum, Phillips 66, EOG Resources, Dee Dee Rose, and I see Dee Dee right here with us there, Carolyn and David Miller, Cynthia and Don Stevenson, Lyda Hill Philanthropies, and our silver and bronze sponsors as well. Your generosity makes all our work possible. And thanks to everyone who joined us today in person and virtually. Thank you for your support for Texan by Nature, and thanks especially for funding important conservation efforts in your own communities, on your office campuses, school grounds, airports, and even in your own backyards. Like many of you, I was inspired by the conservationist and naturalist in my life. As an only child growing up in West Texas, my appreciation for our state's natural landscape started early and came from my mother, Jenna Welch, who, if she wasn't reading, could be found outside. My mother was my Girl Scout leader when we got our bird badge, and she became a knowledgeable self-taught naturalist who remembered the name of every bird and every wildflower. For as far back as I can remember, on spectacular summer nights, Mother would grab a blanket and we'd go outside to lie on the ground and gaze at the sky. Midland, of course, has a huge sky, uninterrupted by trees. Midland's motto was, "The sky's the limit." Imagine growing up in a town with that motto. Maybe that's why Midland produced 2 presidents. And as my mother and I would lay together on the grass, she would say, "Look up, Laura, look up." And it was then that I began to look up and not miss the beauty of the world around us. Since then, conservation and protecting our natural world has remained a constant in my life. I've hiked in a national park with my childhood friends, including Reagan, for the last 30 years. As First Lady, I advocated for the protection of our lands and oceans through the National Park Service and the Marine Debris Initiative. And today I work on conservation through prairie restoration right here at the Bush Center and at our ranch in Crawford. The Bush Center sits on a 15-acre native prairie park that celebrates the natural native environment of our home state. George and I worked with Michael Van Valkenburg to landscape the grounds with the native prairie grasses that once flourished right here in this part of Texas. We planted nearly 930 trees native to Texas, including pecan, Texas redbud, live oak, chinkapin oak, Eve's necklace, and rusty black haw viburnum. Along with these native trees, the grounds feature an amphitheater, a mile-long walking trail, a wildflower meadow, and a 252,000-gallon underground cistern that collects all of the storm runoff from our building, even from the parking lot, and repurposes it to irrigate our native Texas park. Now that we're back working here at the Bush Center, I like to look out the window of my office and see visitors in our prairie park, discovering the joys of nature right here in the middle of the city. Efforts to develop parks in the heart of a city like Dallas are increasingly important, as 80% of our nation's population now reside in urban areas. Exposing more urban dwellers to the natural beauty of our country is critical to maintaining the integrity of our unique natural heritage. But even more important, it's critical to our health. Research shows that being outside and in nature is good for our physical health and our mental health. It's so imperative that we take care of our natural world in order to take care of our health and our future. When George and I moved back to Texas from Washington, I helped found Texan by Nature with a group of friends and committed conservationists. Our goal is to demonstrate that our prosperity and our quality of life are dependent on our natural resources. And as you saw at the summit today, we do this by bringing conservation groups and businesses together through our Conservation Wrangler program, the Texan by Nature certification program, and our Symposia series. We bring partners together to build on the vision of innovative Texans like all of you and like everyone we saw today in these projects. Our Conservation Wrangler program celebrates the best of the best Texan-led projects that align with our mission. Conservation Wranglers, more than just a recognition, it's an accelerator. We work with these projects to broaden their goals, to bring new partners to the table, and to expand their impact in Texas and beyond. Through Exploration Green Conservancy and the Paso del Norte Trail, Texan by Nature supports efforts to increase green spaces in urban areas. We're educating and training Texas youth through our partnerships with Children in Nature, Texas Brigades, and Trinity River Crew. And with Big Bend Coalition, we're providing a new model for conservation driven by rural development. I'd like to thank our conservation wranglers for partnering with Texan by Nature and for making great progress during our pandemic. If you're here in person today, please stand so we can thank all of you for what you're doing for our state. Or is anybody here from any of these projects? I know, great, thank you all. Congratulations, thanks. Marathon Petroleum is delivering oil and gas products and supporting local community efforts to protect wildlife habitat. I think Marathon is also part of our Dark Skies initiative, if I'm not mistaken, that allowed the McDonnell Observatory, which is one of the largest telescopes in the world, to have dark skies out there in West Texas. So they're keeping the lights down on their rigs out there. And Dfw Airport is leading the transportation industry in carbon neutrality and land utilization. All these efforts are big, but you know what? We don't have to make it big. Each and every one of us can make a positive difference. All it takes is a good idea and the courage to get started. And I have the perfect way for you to go home and get started. Did you know that Texas is in its peak bird migration season right now? Each year, nearly 2 billion birds migrate through Texas in one of the planet's great wildlife spectacles. The problem is that most of these birds migrate at night and can become disoriented by the bright lights put out by cities. They crash into buildings and to structures, and they die at alarming rates. But the good news is there's an easy fix. Every Texan can participate in protecting our feathered friends by simply turning off your lights at night. And downtowns can turn off their lights of the tall buildings, which are the most dangerous to migrating birds. During Texas peak spring bird migration, which started yesterday and runs through May 7th, turn off your non-essential lights from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. By joining our Lights Out Texas campaign, you'll help our flying friends reach their destination, and you'll contribute to taking care of Texas. I'm proud that Dallas is part of this, and our big downtown buildings are turning off their lights during this period of Lights Out. Our mayor just issued a proclamation to ask people in Dallas to turn off the lights. The Dallas-Fort Worth area and Houston, of course, are the two biggest light polluters during this time of bird migration. And so with Houston and Dallas turning off the lights, we can really save millions of birds. The benefits of conservation on our health, our economy, and our natural world are endless. By uniting conservation partners and encouraging new projects across our state, we can truly change the world. So thank you for doing your part. Thank you for being Texan by nature and for sharing your ideas with us and for in using your platform to inform others. Oh, and when you go home tonight, turn off your lights. I encourage you to do as my mother would and look up you might see something magical. Thank you all very, very much. Thanks, everybody. Thank you all. Thanks so much. Thank you, Neil. Appreciate you.